So I'm back with my next video. This one is about the Black British Panthers. Now, the Black British Panthers was a foundation that was started here in the UK. Well, not really a foundation, but a movement that was started here in the UK by West Indians. It was by West Indians who had moved from the Caribbean, and they organized their own little movement here in the UK that was based on the Black Panthers of America, but was actually slightly different. So I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm aware I've only got 15 minutes left on my little thing, so yeah, I gotta hurry up. So it says the Black British Panthers, or the British Black Panther Movement, was a black power organisation in the United Kingdom that fought for the rights of black people and people of colour in the country. The BPP were inspired by the US Black Panther Party, though they were unaffiliated with them. It included activists of black as well as South Asian origin. The movement started in 1968 and lasted to around 1973. So let's see. So the British Black Panthers was founded in the summer of 1968 by Ugbuna, Darcus Howe, Linton Kwesi Johnson, and Olive Morris, who were influenced by the American Black Panther Party. They were the five who started the movement. Other early members included Althea Jones LeCointe, as well as South Asian activists such as Farooq Dandi and Mala Sen, under the banner of blackness, with black as a political label for all people of colour. For example, the related Southall Black Sisters were an Asian organisation. The group was initially known as the British Black Power Movement, but after about a year changed its name to the British Black Panthers. Ugbuna had been arrested and was convicted in December 1968 on the charge of conspiracy to murder police officers because of an essay he wrote about resisting police violence. The arrest attracted the first media attention the group received, where they were labelled as black radicalists and extremists. After Ugbuna, Althea Jones LeCointe took his place as leader of the movement. The growth of the organisation was slow, but by the early 1970s they were firmly ensconced I cannot pronounce words, sorry, in Britain's left political culture, and there were around 3,000 members. Whoa. In March 1970, around 300 BPP members demonstrated in front of the American Embassy in Grosvenor Square to protest against the treatment of the American Black Panthers. On the 9th of August 1970, 150 protests involved with the BPP demonstrated against the constant police raids on the Mangrove, a black-owned restaurant in Ladbroke Grove, a West Indian neighbourhood in West London. There were 700 police involved, and violence and arrests took place. In addition to the police, a special branch Black Power desk monitored the protests. 19 members of the BPP were arrested, though later the charges against 10 were dropped. The remaining people, who became known as the Mangrove Nine, chose to either defend themselves or have radical barrister Ian MacDonald represent them. They also requested an all-black jury, citing the Magna Carta as precedent. All members of the Mangrove Nine were later found not guilty by the jury. Eventually, the movement collapsed amid infighting, power struggles, and kangaroo courts. An important thing to know is that a lot of the black women who was involved in the British Black Panthers, they were the ones who were pretty much at the forefront. Not to say that the black men did not have an impact, but we always seem to talk about black men having an impact, and we need to remember that black women are there as well. We should not be forgetting about them. And that is the thing that Gorilla pissed me off, because that TV show Gorilla, they spoke about, like, they did a fictional account of the Black British Panthers, but they had an Asian woman who was the leader, and that is completely inaccurate. Asian people were involved in the Black British Panther movement, but they were not at the forefront as the black women and black men were. So I don't understand why that show Gorilla showed that movement as if an Asian woman was at the front, and she was not. Why is it we always feel the need to deny black women their place in history? Now, Beverly Bryan, she was not one of the first recruits, she was one of the last recruits into the Black British Panther movement, but she was a founding member of the Black Women's Group in Brixton. So even though she did not found the Black Panthers here in Britain, she was, because of her being involved in that movement, she started the next movement, like I said, the Black Women's Group in Brixton. And she's now retired and she works in Jamaica as a professor at the University of the West Indies. And she also co-authored a pioneering book about the rise of Black British feminism during the 1970s called The Heart of the Race, Black Women's Lives in Britain. I will definitely be getting that book. And as you know, Darcus Howe was also a prominent member of the Black British Panther movement. He passed away April last year. He was, I would say, arguably the biggest member, because he wasn't just involved in that. He came from Trinidad. He wasn't just involved in the Black Panther movement, but after it disbanded, he went on to do TV shows, and his impact, you can see it, because when he passed away last year, there was a lot of uproar, because everybody was devastated at the fact that this British legend had gone. And this is the thing, this is why a lot of articles started coming up about the British Black Panther movement, because with him dead, you have to look at it like, who's going to remember about the Black British Panther movement when they start to die. You have to remember that's a piece of history gone. It's always going to be etched there forever, but it's still a piece of history gone, because they're the ones who started this movement, and now it's like, so this is why I'm doing this video, so you can know about them. So the Black British Panther movement, they were mainly about educating their communities and fighting discrimination. Outrightly racist laws that threatened to perpetrate entire swaths of the black population were being pushed into place, and sections of the white middle classes were resentful towards the black community. But the BPP, based in Brixton, South London, helped to change all that, educating British black people about their history and give them a voice to speak out against prejudice. However, despite the successes and influence on black communities in the UK, very little is known about the British Black Panthers. Knowledge of the group, which included figures such as Darcus Howe, Linton Kwesi Johnson and the late Olive Morris, and its aims and achievements, isn't aided by the fact that they only officially existed from 1968 to 1972. It's a bit conflicted. Some places say it was 1973, some places say 1972. Luckily, Neil Kenlock, one of the group's core members, took it upon himself to become their official in-house photographer, capturing images of their meetings, campaigns, marches and presence in local communities. Now let's see. So like I said, Darcus Howe, he travelled to Britain from Trinidad in 1961, believing he will be welcomed by British people as a fellow member of the British Empire. However, Britain was not what Howe expected. The country was poorer than he thought, and there was more prejudice than the propaganda about the empire he had heard in Trinidad had led him to believe. Although he was well educated and well qualified, Howe was refused work in well paid professional jobs. He was also subjected to racist abuse by a white man who resented the fact that he had a white girlfriend. Initially, Howe lived in Notting Hill, where there was a large Caribbean community. And during the 1960s, he began to work as a journalist for Hustler, a paper published by and for the Caribbean people resident in the area. Darcus Howe became involved in the Black Power movement for a number of reasons. In the late 1960s, he was influenced by a number of black intellectuals, including Caribbean writers and activists C.L.R. James and Walter Rodney, and American activists such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Stokely Carmichael, whom Howe met in London. The inspiration they offered, coupled with Howe's own experience of discrimination in housing, the job market, and particularly in policing, led him to found the Black Eagles and later joined the British Black Panther movement in order to campaign for the rights of migrants. So now I'm going to talk about more about the women. So Olive Morris. Olive Morris, founding member of one of the most important black feminist organizations of the 1970s, OWAAD. Olive Morris was a Jamaican-born activist who was truly revered amongst her peers. Enduring brutal police violence as a teenager, Morris was politically active before she was a legal adult. She joined the Black Panthers youth branch as a teen and went on to fight racism and police brutality in Brixton for almost a decade. Following the Panthers' demise, Morris established the Brixton Black Women's Group, a collective of radical feminist black women who took action on issues which specifically affected black women, such as immigration and family planning, and founded the Brixton Black Women's Centre in Stockwell Green. Prominent in the black squatting movement, Morris was responsible for securing some of the most crucial spaces for the Black Power movement, including offices of the journal Race Today and of the Brixton's Black Women's Group. Still today on Brixton Hill, you can find the Olive Morris House, a building owned by Lambeth Council, which was constructed in 1986, a few years after her untimely death. She was only 27. And if I remember correctly, I think she passed away due to cancer or something like that. But as you can see, black women were very, very influential in the Black Panther movement, and also from the Black Panther movement they was able to found these other movements such as the Brixton Black Women's Group. Secondly, Althea Jones LeCointe. Trinidad and Tobago native Althea was largely considered the leader of the Black British Panthers in the early 1970s. Not just the leader of the women's section, but the leader of its 3,000 odd members. You see, women can lead. Jones LeCointe was also one of the Mangrove Nine, whose arrest and subsequent acquittal achieved the first... I cannot pronounce words today. Never mind. Achieved the first judicial acknowledgement in the UK that there was evidence of racial hatred in the Metropolitan Police. And we've been saying this for years because it's 2018 and honestly nothing has changed. The police are still incredibly racist. They were arrested at a protest against the radicalised attack on a restaurant and community hub, the Mangrove, who had endured 12 raids over the course of 18 months despite no proof of criminal activity on the premises. This was huge at the time when institutional racism was the police force was far from a household concept. The Nine's extraordinary legal success is largely credited to both her and Darcus Howe's decision to defend themselves in trial and dismiss 63 jurors who they deemed unfit to bring about a fair trial. And there's Elizabeth Obi, Beverly Bryan, and Leila Hassan Howe. My camera is about to run out of memory, so I'm gonna have to cut it short, but I will continue it. So